So good evening or good morning and welcome to the Blackletter Brunch. I'm Raul Martinez and our presenter today is Carrie Wouters. Carrie is from Antwerp in Belgium and her talk is entitled Blackletter Buddies in the Wee Quiet Hours. I taught uh, Batard calligraphy last year, and Carrie was one of my students, and at the time I didn't realize until I'd seen a couple of her homeworks that she was an excellent Batard calligrapher already. But it was a nice way of meeting her, um, and so I'm asking everybody to hold their questions until the end of the talk, so that um, we don't have too many interruptions. Um, and so I guess I'll make you, I'll put the spotlight on you and then you can start. Let's see. There we go. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead, Carrie. Thank you very
Okay.
much for presenting today.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Raul, for your invitation to show my work at Blackletter Brunch, and to all of you on screen. Thank you for attending this presentation. I'm going to share my screen and then we are completely in the presentation I want to show you. So is everything okay? Yes? All right.
Yes, it looks good. It's in full
Okay. Thank you.
Sneeze. Damn.
Okay. It is only recently that I began to organize my personal calligraphic work, teaching examples and all my lesson notes, and I still go through the boxes and cabinets every day. And I'm still amazed at the amount of work I have been able to accomplish in all these past years. And for this presentation, I've chosen from the work that is already accessible, emphasizing on Gothic hands, but you call it black letter. And that's why I changed my title in Blackletter Buddies. My presentation poster is divided in several parts, and I'm going to talk about it in a minute. The next one. Okay. The title I presented in a personal font that I made, and it's only partially accomplished, but I made it based on a first print of a book from Collard Mention. Collard Mention was a 15th century calligrapher and printer. And he has printed his first book in Bruges. It was called Le Jardin de Dévotion. So I was studying a little bit on his book, and I'm going to talk about it later on. But I thought it was quite a nice way to start with, because the spare time when I was able to develop my calligraphic work is highlighted over here. It's really in the quiet hours during late nights in a sleeping house that I work. And luckily, I was able to locate excellent local teachers from our first courses on. And I was very happy also to find foreign teachers, and they have only fueled my desire for letters during weekend and summer internships. I'm always looking for historical backgrounds and differences in alphabets, and that has led me to even study one calligraphic hand with several different teachers. And on the right, you see a more digital form of calligraphy, the desire to translate handwritten letters and text into a digital form has opened for me a new world of applications. And I'm looking for my own, something changed over here. Here it is. Yes. Well, here are my first works. They're just exercises. I exercised a lot. I took lots of courses in the first years, but only in evening courses. And after several years of study, I was invited to start teaching evening classes myself. And I never expected it at the time, but I know now why. that my limited time was increasingly occupied with lesson preparations and developing teaching examples. And yet I continued taking lessons myself to broaden my perspective. I really love textura, fraktur, Gothicized, italic, Neuland, and of course, Batarde. The region where I was born and where I live now has a strong connection to the calligraphic period with the Dukes of Burgundy. The first leaflets and announcements at the time in local newspapers were replaced by social media. So the world knocks on your door and you also are expected to post your information in a more visible way. I must admit that this is not very successful in my position because of lack of time. I wish I could stretch the hours, so I'm usually quite late to show things to people. On the left hand, it was an announcement for a course I was giving for one of my local groups here on the Flemish Batarde, and on the right hand, the Neuland letter for another group. Teaching also increases the intensity in the implementation of letter structure, which is the more technical aspect of calligraphy. Answering student questions keeps you sharp as a teacher. And even in COVID times, we all remember those horrible times all of the sudden coming down in our world. And my days were filled from morning to late nights. I was switching to online lessons through the Zoom platform because people needed to be, they wanted to keep on writing, and that was something which was quite difficult at the time. And with some instructions, even my older students learned how to use the computer application. And as they said themselves, they were always sitting on the first row in class from that moment on. So for my groups, it became a keeper. A hybrid way of teaching now means here in my 3 local groups, 2 lessons online and then 1 lesson in person. They really need the lesson in person to see each other, to chat, and to show their work in real time. So they are encouraged a little bit more than before to explore their pen work. Now, the preparation of writing is for me to dive into the rhythm of a calligraphic hand, and it's always very essential. I like that phase a lot myself. It clears my head while I focus on the writing, and at the same time, I try to absorb the text in me. No matter how contradictory this all sounds, I'm sure there's somebody on the screen who knows that feeling. And challenges emerge again from time to time and point me into the direction of personal work. So what you see over here is my examples on the left side for my groups at the time, and on the right side, I tried to keep them going, to keep them writing, but also to try to develop in other ways than just writing letters and words. And then the next step to go to a composition is not very easy for everybody. Voilà. So this is what I mean. It's not just writing. While I'm teaching, I'm always scribbling on pieces of paper. That's what you see on the right side. And then I think, oh, what's going to happen when I try to juggle a little bit with those letters? Is this going to be something less Batarde, or is it something that I can work with? And so it challenges me also. So in this case, I have been writing on a folded pyramid shape. Sometimes, and I like those things a lot, writing on fabric with a flat brush or with a pointed brush. Sometimes people ask me something. On the right side, it was for a son, and they wanted to give him all little kind of items, and they asked me to make a little bag with his name on it, so it would be far more easier as a presentation. Now, printing techniques have become a part of my work and a bit out of necessity. Every year I send about 300 season's greetings cards to students, to family, and to friends. And if you add about 60 birthday cards, we are talking about a time-consuming side project. So I had to find out something that would help me in this sending greetings to lots of people. So I started working with silkscreen printing at home, and it reduced the workload a lot for me. I was fortunate to find my first printed greeting cards while I was looking and selecting for this presentation. That's what you see on the right side. These are exactly my first two greeting cards that I printed at the time, a textura combined with copper plate. But sometimes I don't have so much time to do things like that. And then I go to digital print as well. Um, uh, Always the writing, my backgrounds, everything which is presented on the card is done by hand. And then it's always manually worked out. And in the end, I enter it digitally. So on the right side, it is really silkscreen printing on colored paper. And on the left side, I had it also in a silkscreen print, but I couldn't find it for this presentation. But I knew I worked it out later in a digital print. So that's why it's such a difference in presenting these greeting cards. And also this one is a background in jelly print. These are these little things I like to do whenever there's a little bit of time, and then the rhythm of life is written in a Gothic cursive. So the insert over here is the front and the back of my card. Usually I like my cards being folded because it gives me the opportunity to write some personal notes inside when I send it to people. And also this one is a combination of my suminagashi marbling technique combined with graphite. It was the front of a greeting card, and on the back over here is all also in black letter. How big the darkness is, we all have to take care of our own light. That's a free translation. And this is also something I like to combine also. This is a photo I took in Portugal, where we go on holiday every year. And also on the bottom, it says, "The light of change opens a timeless window." Then I want to show you some of my projects. During COVID time, I was invited to enter a virtual exhibition of artworks, and the theme was around the International Day of Mother Language. So what I first did was selecting a text, and I worked with the text of an Antwerp singer-songwriter. His name is Wannes van de Velde, and the whole song is in a Antwerp dialect. And what I do is what you see on the left side. I start working and playing with the letters. In this case, I stretch the letters, and it's always playing around for me and find out if the end result is going to be something I can work with, although I don't know at the time what I'm going to do with it. So the text is, and I freely translated also, that in the measure of the seasons to the rhythm of the moon, the world searches for the reason of a temporary existence. So what you see here on the right side is a detail, which I posted on Instagram, but here is the full work, and it really was the idea I had in my head, but it also changes while I'm working on it, to have a view on a space, but I didn't want to have a blue space. And to show the distance between and to create a little bit of more of depth, I added also the more transparent white, zinc white in between. And you probably recognize this little thing that I showed you before, and these are the first 4 lines of the song. Okay, what did I have next? Okay, this one also. Oh, yes. This work, I called it a privilege. And what you see on the left side, when somebody asked me to make a work or a commission, commissions anything, I don't just send a work, I always send some explanation with it. And that's what you see on the left side for the one I created over here. I've chosen a text from Rosa Montero. It says, between the sea of darkness of the past time and the endless sea of the future time, you live at this very moment, a sparkle of light and coincidence in space, a privilege. So I was quite inspired by the immensity of the universe and the narrowness of a human hand. And to me, every detail is important. Even people living together, every person has its own strength, which assures a kind of unity. So even when I paint, I always write letters. So the dark and the light, I translated in color, not just having black and white. Why did I choose pink? I have no idea. I'm not a pinky lady, but it ended up that color on my paper at the time. And I tried to catch movement also. I wrote the text in a Flemish batarde, which looked at that moment and at the time most convenient to me, because it carries a lot of historical elements and yet it is quite temporary. And here in Antwerp, it is used a lot in urban art as well. So I really want to bundle the force, the strength of those 2 elements. This is a detail of another work. It says it's about the summer. It's about the end of the summer. I was commissioned with a text, and the text was, "The palaces of the summer close their golden gates. This is the escape signal for the birds. Cradling for new paradises, they write magical signs, codes high in the sky that no one can decipher." So in my idea, I wanted to do certainly something with a flock of birds. And I started to, I call it molding letters. I write the text and I start to work with the letters, stretching the letters, squeezing them down, tearing them apart in a certain way. And on one moment something happens, and that's exactly what happened over here. So in my eyes, and it's a detail, so it's very much enlarged than on the total work. For me, these were the birds. These were was the swarm of birds flying out in the sky. I worked with how do you call it, pastel, which you see in the orange and the yellow. Pastel to symbolize the hastiness, but I started first with underlying layers of gouache, and also the lettering, if you can call it a lettering. The letters are sculpted to a kind of a shape. They are all written with gouache, and I accented them with white gouache. Yeah, that's it. This one is much darker. It was a commission. I had a group of friends and they were invited by a mutual friend for his birthday party. And they would fly all together to the southern of France. And they wanted to give him a present, but they didn't have any idea what to give to him because he had everything, they said. So what they did, they composed a text, a poem, and they sent the poem to me and asked me to translate it. I didn't choose the colors. They told me that the color scheme was based on the style in his house. And so this is what I did. I combined Roman capitals written with flat brush and in combination with batarde again. And I heard afterwards that he really liked it and that he really wanted to keep it in his collection in his villa in the southern of France. The signs, the tekens, as we say in Dutch. Well, that was something, and the text is by myself, and I really want to read it to you in Dutch, if you don't mind. Soms glimmen ze tussen het struikgewas of schitteren ze hoog aan het firmament. Onleesbaar, soms cryptisch, vreemd en bizar, bestemd voor de ogen die ze herkent. And when I translate it in English, it says almost like sometimes they shine between the bushes or high in the air, illegible or cryptic, strange and bizarre, visible for the eyes that recognize them. The signs. So here I started with several colors in several layers to create depth from which the title appears, the tekens. And as you see on the bottom, the text is not immediately very readable, but as the content suggests, it is only intended for those eyes who really want to read it. As I told before, I work also with kind of some digital applications. And here on the left side, it is an announcement for 3 days of calligraphy, which I organize every year. We live in a community in the middle of several green parks. And close to our most central park, an old farm was transformed into a cultural center. And in 2023, I combined 3 days of calligraphy with Sumi Nagashi and an introduction to marbling techniques. Why? Because students asked me, you work with it, can we learn it also? So I try to combine these things. And as an announcement, I visualized one of my Sumi Nagashi results in the water of the pond, and then I combined it with black letters. So this is another way for me of working with my lettering, all done by hand. The Sumi Nagashi was done by hand, and just the implementation in a more digital way of working. And also on the right side, it was a capital letter S in Batarde, which I transformed into a chocolate letter. This was on the occasion of the event of 6th of December, which is over here a big event for children, receiving chocolates and sweets and also presents because of Sinterklaas. I have no idea how you translate Sinterklaas in English, but as you see also, I introduced the stick he's walking with inside the word. So that's a little thing I like to work with. This is the light. It's not just the title, but it's also what you see. Again, over here, it's like writing the letters and trying to sculpt them and find a kind of a shape I feel very comfortable with in working with. This was a commission for an art folder in an edition of 14 exemplars. And on the bottom, you see the lino itself. It's a lino print. And the text is, this is the light, is a text that I worked with, but the whole idea was this is the light that surrounds us. The Batarde text shows, in my opinion, the embracing of the light. So the light unites, the light is a dream of every human being, and this is the light I hand over to you. That was an expression I really wanted to work with in this work. But I'm not only working with colored backgrounds and what kind of techniques I want to include. I also like a lot just writing black on white paper. This is done with flat brush, Neuland letter, and it says, when the eyes and ears are open, even the leaves of the trees teach like pages from the scriptures. So this is, for me, one of my favorite ways of working. And then I discovered that Raúl Martinez was giving a course in Batarde. And I told you before that Batarde is really one of my favorite writings. I followed with, I think, with 4 people now who are teaching Batarde, because I find it quite interesting in what way people approach not just the writing, but also the way of working with it. And this is one of my homeworks I sent I have sent, and it's in class number 5. I did send this to Raoul. And it was just, at the moment, it was just writing words, and it's quite difficult if you are you're working and you're living in a different language. So to make it more interesting for myself, I looked up lots of words which I didn't know they all existed, but it was just long words and opportunity to write the different letters all together. So again, discovering this other approach, and I must say, Raoul, you have excellent lesson structure and guidance. It is very much like learning to understand a specific Batarde feeling. So the end result, and I wasn't able to attend the last lessons. These are just also the words. The end result was writing a text with the first letter in quite a bigger a measurement. And I found a text in about life and death. It says it on the bottom because I noted over there also. It was a little poem which was found in a manuscript book of ours, and it was prepared by Antoine Vérard. And it says a lot about plaisir fait vivre, live with pleasure. It's all in French, but for me it's no problem. But so I liked working with the text, and I wrote it again on a leftover paper of printing paper I had in my writing room, as my children call it, and also on a leftover paper of hand-colored paper I had left over. So I'm busy, and it's one of my side projects I'm going to continue in the later months. I'm working on a more traditional work with this text, with gilding and floral borders and things like that. But I need some more time to finish it. And then I want to talk to you about Le Jardin de Dévotion. Le Jardin de Dévotion is a book which was printed by Collard Mention, which I mentioned before. Collard Mention, and here we are in the 15th century. He was a French calligrapher, and he was highly appreciated by the court of Burgundy. He produced very luxurious manuscripts, but very, very luxurious manuscripts. And life can be unpredictable, and due to a lack of money, he ended up in Bruges, where he started with the assistance of his influential friends. He started over as the first printer in Bruges of books in English and French. And even William Caxton worked with him. So at the time, the Heritage Library of Bruges had acquired a first print of the book Le Jardin de Dévotion, and I was invited to explore the potential in both calligraphic and print surroundings. So at the time, I only knew a brief introduction to font design. And what you see over here on the left is a presentation in the library at the moment. The glass boxes were not that big. It was only 60 centimeter on 1 meter 80, where I had to bringing all the results I talked about with the people of the library. And what you see on the opposite side is a glass box with the original work. So this is the original first print of Le Jardin de Dévotion. What I used, I copied, as you see also, I copied some letters from the book from this first print. And as it was a first print, it was not a very good print. It was kind of more smudgy, not very clear lettering, but I tried to do my best. And I, with this very elemental knowledge, I made a page out of the paper of the book. So that's what you see over here. I wanted to work also with something more ornamental, an image, but I couldn't find it in the book. It was just the text, and it is also the only book where numbers were mentioned. So I picked out a floral ornament out of the gilding on the cover of the book. That's what you see over here. And I had it lasered on a glass presse-papier. And that's what I worked later on. This is the text that I chose from the page I wanted to work with. This is my handwriting, my calligraphy handwriting in the Batarde letter. And I don't have a better example for the moment. It's somewhere in my shelves. But this is the only photograph I have for the moment of the writing on parchment, because there was no original calligraphic element left. Nobody could find it. So that's what I did. And then in the end, I also worked with the element of the little flower. And I worked with a kind of a pouch that could be used as carrying case on the belt, because in my research showed also that that was a fashion at the time. I saw several paintings with people wearing little cases like this to carry even very small books of ours with them. So because they asked me at the library, I also made a kind of a presentation in case they would have applied all these printed material, all these elements on printed material. So they asked me to make a folder and a booklet as well, in case someday they would start a huge exposition, how they would implement it. And that's what happened also. But they, several years later, there is a type designer, Jo de Baardemaker, and he was commissioned to design a house style for all the museums in Bruges. And he granted permission to a very small group of people to experience the design process. So I was very lucky to be one of the 4 people, which meant that during the summer months, we initially scanned as much basic material as possible from the available manuscripts and documents with Batarde. We also went to the Plantin Moretus Museum in Antwerp, because it was one of our major source, not just in scripts, but also in printing materials. And all these different scanned letters were gathered together and compared to fonts that already existed. And even though it wasn't planned, Jo inspired us to create our personal alphabet in glyphs. And at the moment when he asked us to do that, I was saying, I don't have time. When do I have to do that? And again, it was in these little small hours in the evenings when my house is sleeping that I found time to work on this challenge again. So here is my booklet. It is a letter test. It is just a partially completed font. I called it Ardor. I'll show you some pages out of it. Why did I choose the name Ardor? Because it's also an example of great enthusiasm and passion. So I worked also, and I talked to Raoul beforehand, I also work in a way to use lettering and make something more ornamental I can work with later on. So this is a double page a double spread page, which is on the left side an original page of the print work, and then the text in green, I copied it with the letters I created in my font using glyphs. So the Ardor of a True Believer is another double spread page, and it's also the conclusion of my presentation. Thank you so much for attending this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was excellent. Excellent. I love your typeface.
Thank you.
Ardor.